Hello and welcome to Planet 40k. Today we're rating another of the heavy support options from the Necron Codex. So this time it's the regular Locust Destroyers. Now we did do the review of the heavy Locust Destroyers recently, so if you've yet to check that one out, I'll leave a link in the end of the video. So for each Locust Destroyer it's going to set you back 3 power level or 55 points. The unit can also include one single heavy Locust Destroyer, which is 70 points for the model or 4 power level, and that includes the weapon option. Now a single unit of this can consist of just one model and can have up to 6 models, plus the heavy version of course. So it's quite a lot of points if you want to take a max unit, but it can be used to shield your heavy destroyer. So the Locust Destroyers come with the following keywords. So they've got the Dynasty keyword going into any dynasty, they're an infantry, they're a Locust Destroyer from the Destroyer cult, and they can fly. So being a Destroyer cult will interact with Destroyer HQs as well as stratagems within the book, and even though they're on a floating platform they are considered as infantry units, so will benefit from terrain and other infantry only abilities. So these guys come with the following stat line: movement 8 inch, weapon skill 3+, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, toughness 5, wounds 3, attacks 2, leadership 10 and a 3+ save. So if you took one of the heavy destroyers, they do have the same stat line except they get an additional wound, having 4 wounds. So as standard with multi-wounded Necron units, they come with living metal, regaining lost wounds at the start of each turn. Not bad with models with 3 wounds each. Command protocols, giving them an army-wide buff each battle round. Then they've got reanimation protocols, which isn't really that great on a multi-wound unit within the Codex. Maybe if it's a larger unit and lost most of them in a single attack, you might get one back, but don't hold your breath. Next you've got the Repulsor Platform, which is the ability to move and fire heavy weapons without a penalty. Now this one's really useful. I mean, the key issues with Doomstalkers and Doomsday Ark is that they've got to remain stationary to shoot the high powered variant of their big guns, so they're sitting ducks if they're not shielded well enough, whereas these destroyers can move 8 inches into terrain, take the benefits from the terrain and still fire. Then finally they've got their hardwired for destruction ability, which grants them rerolls of 1s to hit. This does count for both shooting and melee, although you don't really want them in melee. So they come stocked with a Gorse cannon, which is only a 24 inch range, but it's heavy 3, strength 6, minus 3 AP and damage is D3. So being heavy has no effect due to that repulsor platform thankfully, so you can move 8 inch like I said, get into terrain, get that 2+ armor save, and still be popping off shots at ballistic skill 3. So each model with 3 shots will on average hit 2 of them, and then you get rerolls of 1s as well with the hardwired for destruction, which takes your average to about 2.3 hits. Wounding toughness 3 on 2s, giving you about 1.9 wounds. Against anything toughness 4 and 5 you're going to need 3, so about 1.6 wounds on average. Against toughness 6 you'll need 4s, so about 1.2 average there. Then anything tougher than that you're going to need 5s, so approximately 0.8 wounds. So this tells us basically that you should be firing at anything at toughness 5 or less, which is pretty much regular infantry. It's really useful against the marine meta, as the minus 3 AP puts them on a 6+ armor save. And that D3, although it isn't a guaranteed you kill a model, you've got a 2 in 3 chance of killing the 2 wound marine. To put this in perspective, if you apply the maths to a mid-sized unit of say 3 Locust Destroyers, you'll have 9 shots, re-rolling 1s, you're going to average around 7 hits out of that. Wounding on 3s resulting in a total of 4.7 wounds on average. So there is a chance of them getting a 6+ armor save out of that little wound pool, but having 3 or 4 wounds go through armor should result in removing about 3 models, unless you really mess up the damage roll. These weapons also do pretty well against more elite units that have more than 2 wounds. They also do some good work against light vehicles that are toughness 6, monsters 2. I would take my chances against those with that D3 damage. Now you can get one heavy destroyer with either one of the 2 weapon options that they have. So as mentioned, there will be a link at the end of the video if you want to check out their weapon options. I'll briefly display the weapon options on the screen in case you don't know what they've got, but you're mainly looking at that strength 10 weapon. Moving away from the weapons though, they've got the dynasty codes which they can go into, the metric code being the obvious one, which adds 3 inches range, especially with that 24 inch range. It's going to massively help that weapon. It's got a minus 1 AP if you shoot within half range as well, making that Gorse cannon a minus 4 AP at half range, which will eliminate that 6+ armor save, which is actually quite important because the chances are your opponent will make 1 or 2 little saves in a round of shooting, which you don't want. The code has a stratagem called Talent for Annihilation for 1 CP, which is any 6s to wound, inflict a mortal wound to a max of 3 per phase. This really works best on larger units, so don't put it on your small units, it's not worth it. The Annihilation Dynasty, given objective secured, is handy on a unit with toughness 5, and if you are placing them within your own deployment zone, minus 1 AP weapons will become a 0 AP weapon if your unit is targeted. And your guys do need a little bit of help with resiliency. Also, the code has their stratagem for 1 CP called Reclaim a Lost Empire, which has been able to perform actions while shooting, which is pretty nice for those secondaries. The Swarcon code is pretty useful, allowing for a single reroll to wound per unit per phase, and they've also got the 5-up feel no pain roll against mortal wounds, which helps against sort of explosions or smite and any other faction specific abilities that will hurt you with mortal wounds. The 3 other main dynasties don't really work best for your Locust Destroyers, although as always the Saltec dynasty stratagem works with all shooter units with methodical destruction, which grants other Saltec units a +1 to hit against a certain targeted unit that was previously targeted. So simply target a unit with a single warrior, then pop the stratagem, then your Locust Destroyers with their cannons are hitting on 2s against that unit. As far as going custom goes, you've got Eternal Conquerors for that objective secured, Superior Artisans for that single reroll to wound, an Immovable Phalanx, which is the one I prefer out of this list, which lets stationary units get a +1 to their saving throw, giving them a 2+ armor save, which is pretty handy. Now if you put them in terrain as well, that's going to be even more beneficial because any -1 AP weapons will still put it on a 2+ armor save. You've also got the Masters of the Mars Shield giving a single reroll to hit. Then from the second list you've got Healthy Paranoia giving that 3-inch extra range. Then Relentlessly Expansionist, which is the one I'd probably choose out of this list, giving a 6-inch pre-game movement, so get them into terrain before turn 1 even begins, and it won't affect your Immovable Phalanx because you haven't actually moved in your turn. Looking at some stratagems next, Extermination Protocols for 2 CP, not as good as it used to be unfortunately in 8th edition, but it now gives you the ability to just reroll wound rolls for your Locust Destroyer units. Note that you do have to pop this stratagem before rolling to hit, so there's no guarantee you'll even hit. The bigger the unit is, the more effective this stratagem will be, of course. Disintegration Capacitors for 1 CP, so if you do score a hit roll of a 6 with your Gorse weapons, it'll auto wounds. So again, not bad on a larger unit. A 6-man unit on average will score 3 6s, so just bear that in mind. As for some unit synergy, firstly the Technomancer does a bit of work with a piece of Arcana called the Phylacterian Hive. So the Technomancer has an ability called Rites of Reanimation, which is where he can auto reanimate a single model in a turn. Now this is usually for core models, but as mentioned he carries the Phylacterian Hive, which is an extra 20 points, and you can use this on Destroy Cult units once per battle. So you'll be getting a 55-point model for only 20 points, which is pretty nice. Although you do need a Technomancer to do this, which is a little bit of a tax, but if you are using both the Technomancer and the Locust Destroyers within a list, then you've already paid that tax. Now obviously there's a slight risk here. You could lose your entire unit within 1 turn of attacks, which means you won't be able to get to use the Arcana on that unit, but you can use it elsewhere, so it's not a big concern. Another crypt set which is pretty good to synergize is the Chronomancer with their Chronometron ability. So you can buff a unit within 6 inches with a 5+ invuln save, which they don't have an invuln save, so it's really good. It also gives them a reroll to charge. Ignore that side of the ability, you don't want to be charging with Locust Destroyers, they're there for shooting. The next and probably the most obvious synergy here is the Scorpec Lord and the Locust Lord. Both have an ability called United in Destruction, which allows all Destroyer cults within 6 inches to reroll wound rolls of 1, which means you're rerolling hit rolls of 1 and rerolling wound rolls of 1. Now if you're with the heavy version, which we did the other week, then you're more likely to be closer to your Locust Lord because of the range of your weapons. But as these guys are only 24-inch range, you could be closer to your Scorpec Lord, it depends where you position them. But he'll be at the front with his Strength 8 melee weapon, and your Locust Lord is most likely going to be at the back, synergizing with warriors because he can take an orb. You might find yourself in between both, or in between none, so just bear that in mind when you're positioning your guys. So to summarise the unit, although they are a tough unit with a fair amount of wounds, they aren't invincible, and don't actually have an invuln save, so they're a tad pricey for their points cost. Comparing them to Marine Terminators, they're about 20 points cheaper per model, and they've got a 2+ armor save with a 5+ invuln save, and Power Fist with range attacks on top. So I do wonder where the other 20 points has gone. I do like the fact that they've got a solid 8-inch movement, which goes in line with the more quicker units within the Codex, so getting into cover should be pretty straightforward. Another slight issue is the cannons are only mid-range, so your guys do need to travel a little bit closer to fire in at enemy units. So they could aim to hold the central objectives in the centre of the board, and as already mentioned, it comes with its own issue. If you're wanting to get the United in Destruction ability, you're either going to be dragging the Locust Lord forward or pulling the Scorpec Lord back. Now this may actually work okay, bringing the Locust Lord forward, because he could be flanked with warriors, and bringing them forward could incorporate a solid game plan, taking a lot of board control. But then it's open to backdoor enemy deep strikes, and then you're pincered in the middle of the board. These guys are a heavy support option, but they don't really feel like it. I see them sort of in a similar role as the Annihilation Barge. Like 2 of these destroyers will cost you 110 points, and the barge is 125, and that's with the Gauze Cannon, which is actually the same weapon as what these guys take. You also get the Twin Tesla Destructor 2, and of course they've got Toughness 6, Wounds 8, with quantum shielding on top, so they're a lot more resilient and they're quicker as well. Now it can't get a 2+ save and cover like the Locust guys do, but they are a lot more resilient. The synergy with other units isn't bad, but the Resurrection Orbs aren't really going to be used for this kind of unit, so it's a waste unless you get that Chronomancer to aid their defense. But other than that, they're sort of on their own. One thing I do really like about the unit is that you can get a single heavy destroyer and have him hidden within the unit when you only need a couple of normal destroyers for the extra 6 wounds. Okay, you do pay 110 points for that privilege, but you're also getting 6 strength 6 range attacks. That is on average killing around 4 marines in a single round of shooting, give or take a wound. But more importantly, it'll be keeping your strength 10 heavy destroyer a bit safer, so he will be on the board much longer than if he was on his own. Maybe it'll put your opponent off even targeting the unit if they know they aren't going to get to the heavy weapon straight away. So as for the rating, I'm going to be giving the Locust Destroyers a Planet 40k rating of 3 out of 5. Not as useful as the heavy unit in my opinion, quite overcost for what they do and how resilient they are. I don't think they're that bad, I just would like to have seen them more around the 40 to 45 point mark. They aren't as overpowered as they were in 8th edition due to the changes to reanimation protocols and changes to their stratagem. So guys and girls, don't forget to check out our Patreon service for those early access videos and polls and all that other good 40k related stuff. It massively helps in funding the channel, so take a look at that if you can. You can find us on both Twitter and Instagram, to where at some point in 2021 we are going to begin doing giveaways to our followers and patrons. So give us a follow on both of those to keep on top of that. Also don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. Then finally remember to like the video on the way out. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one.